Dave has returned. Nice to have you back. Jimmy, I just want to pick up on what Amorim was saying there, because obviously he got public backing from Ratcliffe, and since then it feels like he's, really kind of been able to relax in the job. And perhaps before then he was under so much scrutiny that he couldn't quite, settle in. Give us a little bit of insight in terms of that, you've managed the owner-manager relationship, and how important is it to get the backing?
The owner-manager relationship is the most important relationship in the club for the manager. But when an owner comes out and says he backs the manager, that is where the manager needs to start worrying. No, majority of the time.
Yeah, I hear you.
Look, he's gone to Liverpool, great match, great result. Yeah, showed really a lot of resilience in the game. Then what he has done against Brighton, he's backed it up and calmed the ship down a little bit. Let's not forget, let's not get carried away. They're still far of where they should be, really far. But if he keeps on winning the matches that he needs to keep on winning, they're not going to be champions. Yeah? If he is there and thereabout in the top 4, he's done a really good season. A really good season. If he wins the matches that we all expect that he should win, then he buys himself time, and then he will be next year here. But he can't lose against teams like Brighton at home, Everton away, Everton at home. Those kind of matches he needs to win, with all the respect to those teams. And then he will buy himself time, and then he can relax a little bit, and then next year he can get some more players in that he wants, that fits in his system, and then keep on growing. But I wouldn't put too much on the owners giving him backing. It's all about results. It's all about results. If he doesn't win his games, that message will change.
This whole set-piece thing is part of a wider issue, and it's not just Arsenal in the Premier League this season. And actually, I was reading an interesting article by Jason Bird in The Telegraph, talking about the Premier League becoming like the NFL, as he puts it, quote, a sport obsessed by set-pieces with elaborate playbooks, breaking up the flow of the game. Don't we want fast, free, flowing football? And therefore, it's not as entertaining. Do you agree the Premier League not as entertaining at the moment, Clinton?
No, I understand what he's saying. Listen, but if you're winning football matches from scoring from set pieces and it's working for you, why not do it? When we were playing, set pieces was massive, and now all of a sudden it's come back into it. It was like, let's play pretty football out from the back. But sometimes you're not going anywhere. You're getting pressed and people are punishing you and scoring. Get up and play in other people's half. Why not? If they're good at it, I understand the teams like the Liverpool and Arsenal can play out from the back. Even though Arsenal are a threat from set pieces. I've always said it. I said it the other day, Jules. I hated going into training and having to sit there for half an hour or stand around half an hour, 45 minutes and do set pieces. It bored the life out of me because I knew where I was. I was on the goalkeeper. But you need to do that.
Yeah, but they're a bit more complicated now, Clinton.
Yeah. No, but they are more complicated.
No,
but they are complicated more. They are better now. That's what I'm saying. They do work. So people are saying, oh yeah, it's ruining the game. But if you think Arsenal, if they win the Premier League and most of their goals will come from set pieces, their fans will be disappointed. Absolutely no chance.
But it's not ruined. In my opinion, it's not ruining the game.
Exactly.
Because people were moaning last season or season before last, that they was bored about watching Man City.
Yeah, exactly.
Playing short pass. I think it brings a sort of a breath of fresh air where it just brings chaos, carnage into a box. People can't defend it. People don't know what to do. Second balls is a bit old school. I love it. I'm all for it. I'm not saying like every team has to do it. I'm not saying right. So if for instance, if Brighton haven't got someone that can throw the ball into, launch the ball into the box, don't do it. I mean, don't throw it and embarrass yourself, and it is like a wimp throw that just goes like 10 yards. I mean, only do it if you've got the artillery to do it.
You know who would have been good in this day and age? Oh, Rory's the lad, brilliant, unbelievable, because he could throw it. But Stoke were good at it. You know when you're going to play against Stoke and you're playing against the top teams, they're not going to try and play out football at the back. Tony Pulis didn't want to do that.
He had it right all along, Tony Pulis.
Yeah, of course he did. He knew what he was doing, so fair enough. I know we have to move with the times and stuff, but if you're winning football matches, I'm doing it that way. I kind of get it. Like, listen, we're sitting there and we're watching it and we want to see the football out from the back and stuff like that. But City's right. When Man City did it, everyone was moaning and saying, "Oh, it's boring. It's the same thing." But they're winning football matches. You have to find a way out to win games. It suits Brentford and the likes of Tottenham and Arsenal at the minute, and they're winning football matches. Mazza loved set pieces because that head, you should get your head on things, didn't you? I didn't have to run.
and just not taking them. But I think his energy, his work rate, his desire is what you need to be a Man United player. And yeah, I did say it, and I was a little bit unsure. But I think what he's shown is he belongs there. You know, there's been obviously Cunha coming in, great to see him get his goal, and but he's been consistent with his performances. I think that's the main thing. And if you're consistently getting the right positions, getting chances, you know, you will score. What was it, 20 goals last season he scored for Brentford, and now he started. When you're a forward, you score goals. You enjoy scoring goals, and that feeling keeps going. And that's why you see players going on streaks. You know, going on streaks of scoring 8, 9, 10, 11 goals in a bounce. When then maybe when they don't score for a few games, and his confidence is very high at the minute. And hopefully that continues, because you know he's been certainly the best signing for Man United this season. But when you win the Premier League, that's what happens. And teams try and figure out your weaknesses, and it looks like a lot of teams have done that this season. And you need to adjust. You need to adapt. We spoke about this with Amorim. You need to adapt, and you need to be ready for teams maybe trying something a little bit different against you. And Liverpool haven't figured it out yet. So and also it goes back to the confidence again. Man United have found the confidence to help them kick on, and Liverpool are in a bad place at the minute. And when that happens, I can't explain it. It's so difficult. You don't know. You don't know how to get out of it. You can see the goal, and then straight away you're thinking, "Oh, where we go again?" It's such a hard thing to get out of. The best thing is to simplify things. I think for each player, the manager, simplify the performance, simplify what you're doing, and normally, if you've got better players, you win the game. But it's not that easy.
Slot has mentioned, as Kay said, about the fact that his team are weak to set pieces, and he's saying it in interviews outwardly. What did you make of that? Because obviously he's been around the block, he knows what he's saying. Will that be sending a message to the players, the right type of message?
Yeah, but I also think that I've worked with a few Dutch managers, Van Gaal, Koku, Ron Koeman, and the one thing they are is very honest. And I think what he's saying to the media is what he'd be saying to the players. And set pieces are massive in the game, obviously, but I'm sure that they're working and probably doing more work than they ever have done on set pieces. But you know, they keep conceding from them, and you know, and other teams will be looking at it thinking, you know, they're vulnerable. Let's put the ball in this area where maybe they wouldn't have before. So it's an issue for them, but yeah, you've just got to get through it. I think that's what happens in football. When you're weak at something, teams try and, you know, make the most of that, but you've got to try and get through it any way possible. Get through it, and you know, it'll be starting with one game. The next game, let's not concede from set piece. Let's not get done with long balls, and you have to bring everything back. And I know it's a cliche, but you know, back to basics. You have to bring everything back, and then you can start building again to try and improve after that.
Look, yeah, as a kind of 11, you're looking at it and you're like, over the last few years, you're like, what Man United players? You know, as we sit there today, we'd have a case for a few of them to get in, a right few. So I think if they can get top 5, I think the manager's pulled up absolute trees.
Well, key to their good results has been the improved form of their forwards Brian Mbeumo and Matheus Cunha. Paul Merson thinks the pair have already had a huge impact at the club.
The players he's brought in, the three up front, 2 of them are performing. 2 are performing. They're dangers. They are, when they're hot, they are unplayable, in my opinion. They're very good players. And everybody else is playing well. Everybody's playing at 7, 7.5, 8. And they're getting that little rub of the green, which I didn't think Amorim was getting. May it continue. I like the man. I do like him, because I just think he stuck with what he was doing. He believed in what he was doing. And if he was going to go out, he was going to go out his way. You know, because it takes, you've got to do something special to become the manager of Man United, in my opinion. Yeah. And he got, you know, they've got to make sure they carry this run on.
No. I do want to point out, though, that Mark, a couple of weeks ago on this very podcast, had Amorim signed off and back in Portugal. Obviously, Amorim's pulled it back since then. I think at the very least, he's got something that he can point to now. For a long time at United, because the results were so bad, there was no kind of foundation, if you want to call it that, or he had done nothing in the Premier League to point to and say, I got it right there. And there was nothing for fans to say, well, if he's got it right there, then there is hope for the future. People were basing their assumptions on him, on what he'd done in Portugal. And I think actually some of the stuff that was said about Amorim was quite disrespectful, because he is a very, very good coach and achieved an awful lot in Portugal. You know, there was some of the stuff that was said about Amorim was suggesting he was some kind of dud, and that's just not the case. I think that he's found it a lot harder than he thought. I think for the first time, a couple of weeks ago in a press conference, someone said, you know, do you feel like you're taking a step forward? And he said, we have no momentum in our club, and we haven't since I came in. And I think for the first time after the Brighton game, that United do have some kind of momentum, and there will be defeats along the way, and there are going to be some absolutely horrendous results between now and the end of the season where the doubts start to bubble up again. But I think for the first time that Amorim has got something that he can point to. Those 3 wins against, you know, Sunderland, who are doing well, Liverpool at Anfield, which is massive because they've not won there for 10 years, and then Brighton, a team, the type of team that Amorim has struggled against, you know, those middle 11 teams, Amorim just couldn't buy a win against them. So to beat a good Brighton side in the way that they did, I think for the first time you can point to something, United fans can cling to something and go, yes, there is something there.
Did you, from being in the stadium, did you sense that the mood had changed a little bit?
I mean, winning at Anfield will do that for a United crowd, but yeah, the roar when the game kicked off was a little bit louder. The Amorim chant starts a lot earlier in the game. It's been missing a little bit over the last few weeks because fans are starting to doubt whether he's the right man. But that comes, the Amorim chant comes back earlier in the game. The chances are kind of, you know, the oohs and ahs from the crowd when they're playing well are a little bit more kind of regular because they can kind of see what he's trying to do. Obviously helps when you've got players like Brian Mbeumo, who's probably a typical Man United player in the way that he goes about it. It's just a handful. You know, works really hard, gets his body in the way, horrible to defend against. United fans love to see that kind of stuff. It's something to get behind. And it does feel like the mood has changed a little bit. As I say, there are going to be some really, really poor results between now and the end of the season, because even against Brighton in a game that they won relatively comfortably, you know, Brighton have a couple of breaks at 0-0, which could have gone a different way. They've obviously come back into the game to make it 3-2, where lots of United fans at the time are going, oh God, not again. So they are still quite vulnerable in parts of the game, and other teams aren't going to be able to take advantage of that. But I don't really want to say they've turned a corner, but I'm going to say they've turned a corner a little bit. I just think that this little run is massive for Amorim, because it feels like he's finally the United manager. And that seems a stupid thing to say because he's been there for nearly a year, but finally he's got something that he can kind of show fans, and like, this is how I want my team to play. You maybe not be able to do it consistently until he gets another summer window under his belt, but there is something there.
I bet he wishes he was facing Ange Postecoglou's Forest and not Sean Dyche's Forest at the weekend.
Well, although Postecoglou got the better of him, didn't he? Twice last year.
Well, so. True. That is true. But it was a mess there at Forest.
Yeah, I mean, the next 2 games, Forest at home, Forest away, sorry, again is another game against those middle 11 teams that you just hasn't been able to beat. If you can beat Brighton at home, you can beat Forest away, and then Spurs away before the international break is a massive one. I actually think for the first time he's probably got a bit of breathing space, and actually if he was to get a result against Forest and then lose against Tottenham, which he could do because Spurs are playing quite well, not at home, there seems to be better away, but if they were to lose against Spurs, I don't think there would be the huge fallout that there has been in the past after defeats. I think a lot of United fans would kind of shrug and go, okay, well, we're still taking steps forward. That was just a minor setback.
Well, it probably would have been difficult for him to keep his job, because if they'd not won these 3 games and then they go and lose at Spurs, and then there's an international break where there's a lot of noise for 2 weeks. But it sort of feels like now he can get to November, he can get to that international break, and then when you come back into that, you're into Christmas and the January window. So if we're not saying that United have turned a corner, Amorim has probably bought himself the rest of the year at least.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I think the last time we were talking about him on this pod, we were talking about when it could possibly get too much for the board, and I actually think the board I've always kind of maintained that they're sticking with him, so I wouldn't want to speak for them, because privately they have been very supportive, but we were sort of talking, would it be November break, would it be January? I actually think whatever happens now, he'll get the goodwill of the fans will last until at least January. And it's not bulletproof. And if they were to lose sort of 5 on the bounce, obviously that would change. But I do think that this run has been so significant for Amorim that he has bought himself breathing space and bought himself time. And it's little things like you get to January and all of a sudden you've got FA Cup games. In the third round of the FA Cup, with all due respect to a League One side, you get a League One side at home and you win, and it's a comfortable win. That's the kind of thing that Amorim has not had in the first start of the first period of the season, because he hasn't had Carabao Cup games and he hasn't had European games. So you get to January, you win 2 games and you get to the FA Cup 5th round, and it makes everything feel a lot better. I think that what needs to happen now is he needs to get enough results to get him to the summer, and for the board to back him properly in the summer, and then start properly. That's what he needs. There's all this stuff about, he needs to get into the Champions League, he needs to get into Europe. That would be great. I genuinely think that the biggest thing that he can do now is to get enough results that get him to the summer without being in crisis week after week. Have enough trust from the board, from Omar Barada, from Jason Wilcox, to get him that midfielder he needs, possibly get him a left wing back, and then you start to see his team and what he's capable of. And if it's still not right by the next October break, fair enough. He'd have a long time, and that's fair enough. But I genuinely think that a couple more players, get to the summer, a couple more players, and you'll start to see what Amorim is all about the start of next season.
Okay, well, we should just mention, I think, because they deserve it, Bournemouth and Sunderland. I mean,